Malaysia, Ethiopia pledge to leverage each other's strengths. And also, United States agrees to help towards stabilization of Sudan. Good afternoon, Salam Malaysia Berani. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Brenda Paul. Malaysia and Ethiopia have pledged to leverage each other's strengths, particularly in trade, investment, bilateral cooperation and engagement on multilateral platforms. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim said comprehensive bilateral discussions and deeper diplomatic engagement will help build stronger economic fundamentals between both nations.
The discussions covers a comprehensive area. Of course, diplomatic engagements must ultimately result in strong economic fundamentals of trade, investments, and relationship investments and trade with the West and the East, United States, Europe, China, India, etc. The way forward would be to spread out and penetrate new markets in Africa, Latin America.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed Ali described the talks as productive and forward-looking.
Just key areas of cooperation to begin with: industrialization and investment. Ethiopia seeks to draw from Malaysia's industrial success and attract investment in our industrial park, agro-processing, and electronic sector. We have also covered digital economy. We have discussed cooperate in digital finance, financial inclusion, and data-driven innovation.
Both leaders also discussed skills development and expanding youth employment opportunities in Ethiopia. Dr. Abiy said Dr. Sri Anwar's visit marks a new chapter in South-to-South cooperation, anchored on harmony, inclusivity, and solidarity. Both leaders witnessed the exchange of memorandum of understanding in health, air services, and tourism cooperation. Israeli airstrikes on Gaza killed 27 people Wednesday, officials in the Strip said, with Israel and Hamas each accusing the other of violating the fragile ceasefire in the Palestinian territory. The strikes were among the deadliest in Gaza since the truce entered into force last month and came as Israel also announced a string of attacks targeting Hezbollah in Lebanon, in spite of a nearly year-long ceasefire there. 14 people were killed Wednesday in Gaza City in the north and 13 in the Khan Yunis area in the south, according to the territory's civil defense agency, which operates under Hamas authority. The Israeli military said it was striking Hamas after insurgents opened fire towards an area where troops were operating in the south in violation of the ceasefire agreement. Hamas denied the accusation and denounced the attacks as a dangerous escalation that could jeopardize the truce, which has largely held since 10 October despite flare-ups, media restrictions in Gaza, and difficulties in accessing many areas mean foreign media are unable to independently verify the tools and details provided by both sides. The highest daily toll registered since the truce took effect was on 29 October, when more than 100 people were killed in Israeli strikes. Ukrainian rescuers worked through the night after a Russian barrage of drones and missiles on Wednesday struck apartment blocks in Ternopil, killing at least 25 people, including 3 children. About 80 others were wounded as Russia fired 476 drones and 48 missiles at Ukraine, striking energy and transport infrastructure and forcing emergency power cuts in a number of regions in frigid temperatures. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky published photos and videos of shattered multi-story buildings surrounded by smoke in the apparent aftermath of the strike. The upper floors of a residential building in Ternopil were torn away in the attack. Personal belongings were scattered near a destroyed apartment block as heavy smoke rose above the city. It was one of the deadliest strikes on the west of the country since Russia invaded in February 2022. Moscow of late has been intensifying its daily drone and missile barrages in recent months, targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure and hitting a number of civilian sites ahead of winter. Russia and Togo will establish embassies in each other's countries next year as Moscow continues to expand its presence in Africa. Facing growing isolation in the West, following its full-scale offensive in Ukraine, Russia has been strengthening political, economic and military ties across the African continent. Its relationship with Togo has also deepened after both nations signed a military cooperation agreement earlier this year. Speaking in Moscow, President Vladimir Putin said the two countries have enjoyed 65 years of diplomatic ties but had never opened embassies. He confirmed that both missions will begin operating next year. Nasingbe thanked Russia for continuing to offer scholarships to Togolese students and said the new embassies would further boost cooperation, especially in education. Togo has been grappling with a spillover of violence from its Sahel neighbors, with at least 60 civilians and soldiers killed in attacks this year. Nasingbe has also positioned himself as a mediator in several continental crises, including tensions between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. United States President Donald Trump said on Wednesday he will work to help end the war in Sudan after Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman asked him to get involved in the conflict. He said the United States will work with Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt and other Middle Eastern countries to end atrocities in the region and stabilize Sudan.
And I'll tell you, His Majesty would like me to do something very powerful having to do with Sudan. It was not on my charts to be involved in that. I thought it was just something that was crazy and out of control. But I just see how important that is to you and to a lot of your friends in the room. Sudan, and we're going to start working in Sudan. I didn't think that that was one that was going to be so easy to do, but we're going to start working.
Trump had barely commented on the Sudan war in the 9 months since he returned to office, focusing instead on the wars in Gaza and Ukraine. But on Wednesday, the 79-year-old Republican said he would use the influence of the presidency to bring an immediate halt to the war. The U.S. Justice Department will release files from its investigation into the lead sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, within 30 days. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Wednesday after Congress voted nearly unanimously to force President Donald Trump's administration to make them public. The material could shed more light on the activities of Epstein, who socialized with Trump and other notable figures before his 2008 conviction of charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution. At a news conference, Bondi confirmed that the Justice Department will release its Epstein-related material as required by legislation that passed the Republican-controlled House of Representatives and Senate on Tuesday.
We have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law and to have maximum transparency. Also, we will always encourage all victims to come forward.
The scandal has been a thorn in Trump's side for months, partly because he amplified conspiracy theories about Epstein to his own supporters. Many Trump voters believe his administration has covered up Epstein's ties to powerful figures and obscured details surrounding his death, which was ruled a suicide in a Manhattan jail in 2019 as he faced federal sex trafficking charges. But that release may not be comprehensive, as the legislation passed by Congress allows the Justice Department to hold back personal information about Epstein's victims and material that would jeopardize an active investigation.
My cut bukan sekadar kad pengenalan, tetapi medium utama yang menghubungkan rakyat dengan pelbagai perkhidmatan kerajaan dan swasta. Banyak insentif kerajaan disalurkan melalui MyCard, daripada bantuan kebajikan, kemudahan kesihatan hinggalah pelbagai program rakyat. Inilah keistimewaan yang dimiliki oleh setiap warga negara Malaysia. Sila periksa keadaan MyCard anda. Sekiranya chip rosak, hilang atau MyCard sudah uzur, segera lakukan penggantian di Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara agar hak dan kemudahan anda sentiasa terjamin. Inilah komitmen madani dengan dokumen identiti yang sah, moden dan diyakini, rakyat disantuni sebaiknya. MyCard, identiti anda, kebanggaan negara.
Thanks for staying with us. Brazil's president met with negotiators at a COP30 summit on Wednesday as part of a drive to land an early deal on some of the most divisive issues in global climate talks. The issues discussed included increasing global usage of fossil fuels and climate finance. The Brazilian leader and other officials met with ministers from Africa and small island states, negotiating groups as they push for consensus at a COP30 climate talks in Belém. The closed-door session included Brazil's Environment and Climate Change Minister Marina Silva and COP30 President Ambassador André Correa do Lago. The discussions are expected to focus on climate finance, adaptation and mitigation strategies. The leader also met with Brazilian indigenous leaders. Host Brazil, hoping to buck the trend in which recent climate summits ran well past deadline, was seeking to endorse a package of agreements later on Wednesday and the outstanding issues on Friday. However, it is already facing delays publishing new negotiating texts. The son of Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said he believes India will not approve an extradition request by Bangladesh following Hasina's death sentence at a trial in Dhaka earlier in the week. Speaking from the U.S. state of Virginia on Wednesday, Sajib Wazed criticized the legal process around his mother's trial. He expressed faith in Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's administration to absorb political pressures and refuse its neighbour's extradition requests. After the verdict on Monday, the Bangladeshi Foreign Ministry called on India to extradite Hasina and former Interior Minister Asaduzzahman Khan Kamal, who was also sentenced to death in the same case. India said it noted the verdict was committed to the best interests of the people of Bangladesh and would engage constructively without going into more detail. Hasina's sentencing in Setia came at the end of a months-long trial that found her guilty of ordering a deadly crackdown on a student-led uprising last year. Hasina has strongly denied the accusations and dismissed the court as a rigged tribunal. She fled to neighbouring India in August 2024 at the height of the uprising against her government. Australians under the age of 16 will be removed from Facebook and Instagram starting the 4th of December, ahead of new laws that will ban teens from social media. From 10 December, Australia will require platforms including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok to take down accounts belonging to users under 16 or face heavy fines. Meta said it is moving early to comply with the new rules. It will block new under 16 accounts and revoke access for existing users, with all known underage accounts expected to be removed by 10 December. Meta said teenagers will regain access to their accounts exactly as you left it once they turn 16. Social media companies have criticized the new laws as vague and rushed. Meta reiterated its concern, saying it supports safer online experiences but argues that cutting teens off from their friends and communities is not the answer. Myanmar military said it has raided another internet scam hub on the border of Thailand, arresting nearly 350 people, part of a crackdown against a notorious internet scam operation. Footage released on Wednesday shows buildings in the Shwe Koko area being demolished before police raid nearby premises. During the operation, 346 foreign nationals were arrested and nearly 10,000 mobile phones and related equipment used in online fraud were seized. The crackdown comes amid pressure from China over its citizens' involvement in cross-border scam operations. The raided hub is linked to alleged racketeer Setia, who was extradited to China last week. Last week, the State Administration Council said 101 buildings in the infamous scam center, KK Park, had been destroyed, with 47 more set for demolition. The scam compounds are typically run by criminal gangs that employ foreign workers, many of whom say they were trafficked and forced to take part in internet fraud schemes that target victims worldwide. Over 10,000 foreign nationals have been detained so far for suspected participation in online fraud and similar illegal activities. Coming up, snap elections loom as Kosovo ruling party fails to establish government. Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti's ruling Vetevendosje party failed to secure enough parliamentary votes on Wednesday to form a government, pushing the country toward a snap election. Vetevendosje came first in an inconclusive election in February, but has failed to form a government so far, and opposition parties have also not taken the reins, saying they would rather go to the polls than form a government. Months of political deadlock in the small Balkan country have contributed to a lack of reforms, the stalling of infrastructure projects and the freezing of some European Union and World Bank funding, and have also hindered Kosovo's aspirations of EU membership. Glaud Konjuksva, Kurti's ally and aide, won 56 votes in the 120-seat parliament in Wednesday's vote, which was called to give Vetevendosje a second chance to form a government. Kurti hand-picked Konjuksva after failing himself to win a mandate in a parliamentary vote in October. According to the constitution, President Vjosa Osmani will now set an election date in the coming days. Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kośniak-Kamysz said on Wednesday that 10,000 soldiers will be deployed to help protect critical infrastructure such as railways as part of Operation Horizon. Speaking during a press conference in Warsaw, Army Chief of Staff Wisław Kukula warned that the upcoming long winter nights and Christmas period could be perceived by Poland's enemies as a good time for sabotage. Kukula said a new app would soon be deployed to make it easier for citizens to report suspicious situations. Poland, a major ally in Ukraine's fight against Russia's invasion, says two Ukrainians collaborating with Moscow perpetrated the weekend blast on the Warsaw-Lublin rail line, which connects the Polish capital with the Ukrainian border. Earlier on Wednesday, Poland said it would close the last Russian consulate in its territory and urge EU allies to restrict Russian diplomats in the bloc's Schengen-free travel area in response to the railway explosion. Moscow denies responsibility, citing Russophobia in Poland, and said it would likewise limit Poland's diplomatic and consular presence in Russia. Power cuts in Cuba show no sign of improvement as traditional suppliers to the communist-run island, including Venezuela and Mexico, have slashed shipments of much-needed fuel to generate electricity. Cuba relies on imported refined products to meet demand, including from fuel oil and diesel for power generation to jet fuel and gasoline for transportation. U.S. sanctions and a deep economic crisis for years made it impossible for the government to buy enough fuel, forcing a growing dependence on allies. Cuba's imports of crude and fuel from Venezuela, its most important political ally, have declined, with supplies of fuel oil for power generation particularly hit by the reduction. Cuba's government cites the fuel shortages as well as decrepit infrastructures and mostly recently damages from Hurricane Melissa for worsening power outages. Almost 800 megawatts of power generation, more than a quarter of daily demand, is currently shut down due to a lack of fuel and petroleum-based lubricants. The outages are increasingly hitting the capital, Havana, the country's economic engine, with scheduled and unplanned power cuts sometimes topping 9 hours daily. Many outlying provinces see just 2 to 4 hours of electricity a day, vastly reducing output and complicating daily life. A volcano on Indonesia's main island of Java erupted Wednesday, throwing ash and gas kilometers into the sky and forcing officials to raise the alert status to its highest level. Mount Semeru in eastern Java, about 310 kilometers west of the tourist hotspot of Bali, erupted at 2:13 p.m. local time, spewing what are known as pyroclastic flows, according to Indonesian Geological Agency head Muhammad Wafid. Muhammad in a statement said the public is advised not to engage in activities within an 8-kilometer radius of the crater or peak of Mount Semeru due to the risk of being struck by ejected rocks. The National Disaster Agency meanwhile said the plume of ash had risen as far as 13 kilometers. Its spokesman, Abdul Muhari, said at least 300 villagers living near the volcano had been evacuated to 2 temporary shelters. There were no immediate reports of casualties. The Geological Agency also said the seismic activity at Mount Semeru remained high. Authorities at Ngurah Rai Airport in Bali said flight schedules were operating as usual so far. An eruption by Semeru in 2021 killed more than 50 people and damaged more than 5,000 homes, forcing almost 10,000 people to seek refuge. Indonesia sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where the meeting of continental plates causes substantial volcanic and seismic activity.
Tutup tingkap dan pintu untuk kekal dingin dan lebih jimat. Bersihkan penapis penghawa dingin dan tetapkan 24 darjah Celsius untuk lebih jimat.
Bitcoin slid more than 4.4% on Wednesday, extending recent losses as hopes for a U.S. rate cut faded. The cryptocurrency traded at $88,640 on Wednesday evening, falling below 90,000 for the first time since April. The global crypto market tumbled 5.4% in 24 hours, dropping to $3.02 trillion, with Bitcoin's market caps sliding to $1.76 trillion and trading volume falling 35%. Minutes from the latest Federal Reserve meeting revealed deep divisions among officials on inflation versus labor market risks and whether further rate cuts are needed this year. Market odds of a December rate cut by the Fed dropped to 31.6%, down from 63.8% a week ago. A major crypto sell-off last month triggered over $19 billion in liquidation and shaved more than $1 trillion off the global crypto market. NVIDIA forecasts fourth quarter revenue above Wall Street estimates on Wednesday, betting on booming demand for its AI chips from cloud providers against the backdrop of widespread concerns of an artificial intelligence bubble. The results from the AI chip leader mark a defining moment for Wall Street as global markets looked to the chip designer to determine if investing billions of dollars in AI infrastructure expansion had resulted in towering valuation that potentially outpace fundamentals. The world's most valuable company expects fiscal fourth quarter sales of $65 billion compared with analysts' average estimates of $61.66 billion. Ahead of the results, doubts had pushed Nvidia shares down nearly 8% in November after a 1,200% surge in the past 3 years. Still, analysts and investors widely expected the underlying demand for AI chips to remain strong. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said last month the company has $500 billion in booking for its advanced chips through 2026. Big Tech, among Nvidia's largest customers, has doubled down on spending to expand AI data centers and snatch the most advanced, pricey chips, and its commits to multi-billion, multi-gigawatt build-outs. Still to come in sports, Terima Malaya squad climbs world rankings despite off-field controversies. Stay tuned. The off-field controversy facing the Football Association of Malaysia (FAM) has not slowed the momentum of the Terima Malaya squad, which have climbed to 116th in the FIFA World Rankings. In the latest update released last night, Peter Klomovsky's squad rose 2 spots compared with 118 last month. Malaysia were ranked 131st in April and have since consistently moved up the ranks. Thailand remained the best Southeast Asian team at 95th, followed by Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines and Singapore. Japan continued to dominate the Asian standings at 18th in the world, followed by Iran and South Korea. Spain retained their status as world #1 team, followed by Argentina in second place and France in third. Italy will face Belgium in the semi-finals of the Davis Cup after winning both of Wednesday's singles matches against Austria in front of an enthusiastic crowd in Bologna. Matteo Berrettini and Flavio Cobolli claimed straight sets victories, making light of the absences of star players Yannick Sinner and Lorenzo Musetti. Former Wimbledon finalist Berrettini, who was key to Italy retaining the Davis Cup last year, comfortably saw off Yuri Rodionov 6-3, 7-6 in 1 hour and 35 minutes. The injury-prone 29-year-old rattled off 3 games, saving 3 set points to draw level at 5-all before going on to win the tiebreak and put Italy ahead in the tie. Cobolli, ranked 22 in the world, made short work of Filip Misolic, beating Austria's highest-ranked player 6-1, 6-3 to secure Italy a spot in the last 4. The 23-year-old breezed past Misolic in little more than an hour to the joy of the majority of the 10,000 fans present in northern Italy. Italy winning the 2 singles matches meant Simone Bolelli and Andrea Vavasori did not play their doubles match against Alexander Eller and Lucas Mittler. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Malaysia, Ethiopia pledged to leverage each other's strength. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Brenda Paul. Salam Malaysia Madani. Take care.